In this video, we'll be going through the 3 best meta ad structures in 2025 and 2026 for e-commerce brands. There's 3 really important considerations to have right now. Number 1, creative velocity and diversity has never been more important. Number 2, meta is moving to Advantage Plus only as business as usual campaigns. And number 3, Andromeda and the introduction of heavy AI tooling within the platform has changed the overall approach to how you should be structuring and setting up the account. The first note is creative testing volume. Now, we actually have a full calculator on how you can predict how much creative volume you need. We'll put that in the description below. What about ad account structure? There are 3 different structures that you should be approaching with based on your ad spend. If you're under 50K a month in ad spend, you have a different structure to if you're 50 to 250 and 250 plus. And so your structure should actually evolve over time as you continue to scale. Now, what does sub 50 look like? Well, you should have a dedicated testing campaign. Now, this is either going to be an ABO or an Advantage Plus with minimum spend caps. It doesn't matter if your account right now is Advantage Plus only, run this as Advantage Plus, but put minimum spend caps at the ad set level. If you can still run an ABO, run this as an ABO. Then down at the ad set level, that is where you start to bundle in your tests. This is 3 to 5 different creative that sits under an ad set that is being tested generally around one particular concept. And we'll explain what concepts actually mean in a moment. You then have a key performance indicator in place that determines whether this was a success or not. If it was a success, you can scale that up. If it was not a success, it goes into an iterative creative testing process for future test design. So if, for example, UGC with this kind of messaging didn't work and we think we did our absolute best in scripting, we don't do that again. And we test a different creative type, a different angle, or a different product, offer, or target persona. If creatives are performing exceptionally well, they also get pulled down into a dedicated Advantage Plus scaling campaign. This has exclusions on existing customers. So you're forcing these creatives only into cold audiences. Sitting next to these 2 campaigns also sits a dedicated retargeting campaign. Now, this is optional, which is why we haven't put it on the screen. We would generally recommend it in 90% of cases where you are targeting 90-day visitors with some form of objection handling messaging, or you are retargeting existing customers. That allows you to delineate existing customers out of your cold targeting campaigns so that you can still have spend there, but you're not overspending and letting Meta go and inflate your budget substantially on existing customers. What about if we step up to 50 to 250? It changes slightly. You get the optionality to be able to bridge into a new structure that is instead multiple Advantage Plus campaigns that is segmented at the concept or the product level. Now, this will be at the product or collection level if you're in fashion. If you're not in fashion and you can be more malleable with your messaging, your angles, your concept design, this will be at a concept or a persona level. Now, the reason why you would want to evolve into a structure like this is because if you continue running all of your creative tests at an ad set level, number 1, it becomes unbelievably labor intensive to be able to actually optimize budget distribution on a daily basis to the point in which the machine learning is going to be better than you. And so you're actually going to see a hit in efficiency by doing so if you're testing, let's say, 150, 200 ads a month. And then number 2 is that once you start to reach that level of creative volume, you want some ability to start to segment it out into its individual concepts so that you can actually KPI at a concept, an angle, a collection, a product level, rather than blindly based on a specific set of creative. This then begins to become more intuitive when you're looking at resource allocation within the business. I'll give you an example. One of these concepts might be doing incredibly well. One particular approach to a particular target demographic with this specific messaging. And so from that, you might decide that you should increase resource allocation to create landing pages for continuity for that particular concept so that we can take advantage and squeeze ROI higher. You might see that for concept 2, we're actually lagging a fair bit. Why? Well, in the concept 2 campaign, we might notice that you have no UGC, but UGC is what's holding up the primary concept. And so we might start to bridge that into our concept 2 Advantage Plus campaign. And so you can start thinking larger and more strategical across actual concepts and angles, rather than getting too deep into the weeds of individual creative nuances that often leads to biased extrapolations of what's actually occurring within the business. That is one of the things that we always want to try to prevent here within our creative flywheels, is that you don't want to look at a creative test and go, oh, this one did better than the other one, therefore a blue background color outperforms a red background color. It's too nuanced, it's too detailed, and it's likely incorrect in an environment like marketing where there's hundreds of different variables changing every second. And so instead, we really want to step back and try to draw large conclusions out of our tests, and designing the ad account through concepts allows us to do so. In conjunction to that sits a retargeting campaign next to it. Now, the question then becomes, well, what is a concept? That's very, very important for being able to define the account structure here. A concept is the intersection between an offer, angle, and audience. This could also be redefined as simply a persona. It depends on the individual business and how detailed you can actually go here and how many real concepts actually perform within the account. Within fashion, you're not going to have the ability, in most fashion brands, in some apparel you can, but in most you can't pivot concepts aggressively. You're really strictly bound by particular products with a very particular audience, with a very particular angle. That is the brand positioning of a fashion brand. And so because of that, concepting becomes less relevant, and you actually want to segment based on either price of product or based on collections or categories. Just going a little bit deeper here, here's some example concepts of High Smile teeth whitening. And so the offer generally is just the product. What product are we pushing? Now, it isn't always, because an offer, as you should know, could be expanded into a discount. It could be expanded into a bundle. It could be expanded into a subscription, a membership, etc. And so you can see all of those different options here. So you've got the membership here, you've got bundles, you've got individual products, you've got combinations of multiple products. So we have all of these different offers that we can start with. Then from there, we can build angles that underlie the offer. Now, realistically, you can take one offer here and you can build 20 angles. And from those 20 angles, you can build 20 audiences. And then you can start mismatching them, and you end up with thousands of different concepts. This is where it can start to be dangerous and confusing when we're looking at this account structure. Because if you can generate 1,000 different variations of concepts, does that mean you run 1,000 different Advantage Plus campaigns? No. The reality is that for most brands, only a few concepts will actually work at an efficiency in which you can scale to hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in spend. And so you can generate thousands of different angles, but reality is you go and put all those angles in the account, 2, 3, maybe 4 are going to crush it. And once you know the ones that are doing well, you end up really consolidating down into those core concepts, and you can iterate on them. You can have different ad types. You can slightly change the messaging, change the angle, maybe change the audience slightly, but stay within the constraints of what you define as that concept. And so you really need to start to edge these concepts out over time, and then you can build iterations that underlie them. As you can see, the audience then is specific to the angle in most cases, and then you have a selective ad type. So running through an example of this for High Smile is that you may have flavored toothpaste. That angle is fun, crave-worthy flavor plus cavity protection, so it's a double value proposition here. Who's that going to be targeted at? Probably kids, teens, families. Makes sense. Are you going to go and target crave-worthy watermelon flavor to dads? Probably not. It's probably going to be angled towards kids and teens. And then what's the ad type? We could generate hundreds of different ad types here, but in this instance, we could go for some kind of carousel that has all the flavors lined up in a row. Now, the question then becomes, how do you KPI a campaign structure like this? Do you go down into the Advantage Plus campaign, look at the individual ads, and go, okay, this ad's performing well, these aren't, let's turn them off? And this is where it gets a little bit confusing. We put this video out last week. It's called the Meta Breakdown Effect Explained, and the thumbnail is very clickbaity. It's never turn a meta ad off. And that's the reason why we made it that headline. But the concept here is that you should not go into ad sets and campaigns that are performing well and start switching ads off. And the reason for that is the documentation that Facebook has put out around the breakdown effect. I recommend watching that video if you want more detail around this, or going through this particular article that was published by Meta. Now, this video ended up causing a little bit of confusion amongst a lot of viewers because they concluded from this video that we put out that our recommendation is that you never turn an ad off ever in any campaign or ad set. And that actually wasn't the purpose. It was probably misled based on the thumbnail. The actual purpose here is that if something is working, you do not want to turn an ad off because the optimization occurs at the campaign level. So when you're looking at all of these ads, and these 3 ads could sit in an ad set or a campaign, it doesn't matter. And then you go and look at the return on ad spend of these 3 ads. And you go, well, one's at a 5, one's at a 4, one's at a 3, and they're all spending about $5,000 a month. Okay, intuitively, you would come in here and say that I could improve the performance of this campaign if I go and turn this ad off. If you go and do that, this campaign, I guarantee you, will perform worse. And the reason being is that the campaign is optimizing for the best possible CPA that it can get you. And so if it's spending $5,000 here, it means that either number one, it can't spend any more money on these top 2 ads without efficiency declining precipitously to the point in which you will get worse total return out of the campaign. Or it is spending on this ad because there is a sequence that is occurring of multiple ad impressions that involves ad 3 that is causing the conversion to occur. And so Meta will very rarely ever serve a same identical creative to a user more than twice. The reason they do that is because probability of purchase drops precipitously after 2 impressions of an identical creative. And so Meta will serve an ad, maybe serve the same ad again. And then if they believe that that is a high intent user that should be buying based on their psychographic data points and their interactions on the platform, their machine learning model will continue to target them, but they'll show them novel ads. And so rather than continuing to show ad 3, they'll come in and they'll show them ad 1, or they'll show them ad 2. At that point, the user may click, they may buy, the attribution goes to this ad. All you see is last click attribution within Meta. You don't see the multi-touch attribution that Meta is optimizing across. Really important disparity here. We go through this in the How Machine Learning Works in 2025 for Meta Ads video, which is that Meta is not optimizing across last click attribution. Meta is optimizing across multi-touch attribution, but you don't see the multi-touch attribution. And so you go and look at this and you go, this doesn't make any sense. Why is it spending on ad 3? Turn it off. You turn it off, performance dips, because there was a reason why ad 3 was being spent on. Now, this is where this argument annoys some people and they don't want to hear it and they think that they should turn ads off. Is that, well, what if this campaign isn't working? What if it's underperforming against KPI? Well, it's underperforming against KPI, so do whatever you want. And you can go in and turn ads off if you think that that will improve performance. Sometimes it does. If we have a campaign or an ad set that is not performing at KPI, ultimately you need to do something. Just continuing to run the ad set or continue to run the campaign is not going to solve the issue. And so if one of those options within the decision tree is to go in and turn an ad off, by all means, go in and turn an ad off, see if it's going to fix it. But if an ad is performing at KPI, do not go in and turn an ad off because it's going to reset the machine learning at the ad set or campaign level. It's going to figure out how to re-optimize and hit your CPA targets, and likely it's going to underperform. So do not do that. So do not touch if the ad set or the campaign level efficiency is at your KPI. Example, don't do this. Performance marketing ultimately is navigating a decision tree. And so when you're looking at ads, when you're looking at ad sets, when you're looking at campaigns, ultimately what you're doing is trying to figure out, okay, this isn't working. There are multiple different things that I can do to try to rectify performance. And that ends up building into a decision tree. And the better you become at performance marketing, the more capable you are, the better you can see and assess every option with its probability of success. And so that is where when you're looking at an individual ad and deciding whether to turn it off, I would argue quite strongly that, yes, go and turn ads off if an ad set isn't working. Do I think that that's the highest leverage, best possible thing to be able to improve the performance of an ad set or a campaign? Probably not. There's probably a lot better options as to how you could rectify the performance in that account. However, if turning an ad off is something that you want to test, if it's something that you think will improve performance, it's absolutely something that you can do as long as the campaign is not hitting KPI. Now, what happens when we then go and graduate into the next stage? And just to put a bow on everything that we've gone through in the last 5 minutes, the KPI here is at the campaign level, not at the ad level. And so do not go into these campaigns, look at the ad level and go, oh, I'm going to start switching stuff off. The ad level doesn't matter. The attribution here is based on last click, but it's optimizing across multi-touch. It's distributing spend based on hitting your CPA and conversion targets at the campaign level, not at the ad level. Optimization does not occur at the ad level, so do not look at the ad level when you are making decisions. Unless, obviously, a campaign isn't performing. Once again, if a campaign isn't performing, you can go down. What happens when you progress to 250K plus per month in spend? Now, this is going to apply to all markets, but this is more specifically contextualized to my experience in the Australian market. And the reason for that is that I have never really ever seen a meta ad account in the Australian market spending over 250K a month that isn't running multiple ad accounts. The recommendation here is that you start a second ad account, and that second ad account here is on a cost cap focus. And so I would run with a very similar structure. If you're running the concept Advantage Plus structure, you can run the exact same structure in the new account, but I would run it strictly on cost caps. And you can start to play with different approaches here. You can play with different structures. It doesn't start to become as boxed in and fragile when you're running a multi-account structure at this kind of spend. This is where you have enough spend to really test things. And so I've put a generic account to structure here, but this isn't what we run all the time. It changes. We will test quite a bit in a second account. Now, the reason why a second account seems to always work at these high spend levels is what people believe, and I don't have any proof of this, but it's believed that as you continue to scale spend in a primary account, the bids for placements on high intent users continue to increase and increase. It becomes more and more expensive because you're going either into higher and higher, more expensive placements, or you're simply driving the cost up yourself. When you create a second ad account with the same pixel, you retain most of the learnings, but you go into auctions with a low bid. And so your bid effectively gets reset. And so it's a way to arbitrage a lower cost to more volume through separate ad accounts. Now, is this viable at lower spend? Not from what I've seen. Like, increased bids doesn't really become an issue until you really start saturating the niche in the market. And so that's why I wouldn't really even be concerned about this till you start to approach 250K a month in spend. Is this something to be considerate of at this stage? Absolutely. So to recap, if you're spending less than 50K a month, dedicated testing campaign, either Advantage Plus or ABO with minimum spend caps, testing at the ad set level, 3, 5, maybe even up to 6 creatives sitting within these ad sets, depending on budgets, KPIs in place at the ad set level, not at the ad level. This causes a flywheel effect where you can start iterative creative testing, figuring out what's working, what's not, and you can take those high performers and put it into a dedicated Advantage Plus scaling campaign. As you scale up, this bundles into concepts for all of the reasons that we've mentioned in conjunction with that retargeting campaign. Then you move into introducing a second ad account. Now, if you want the creative calculator that we mentioned at the start, this is really vital for understanding creative volume. That will be in the description below. So if you scroll down, you can apply it to get the calculator and we'll send it out to you for free. If you want bonus tips, these are the 2 most relevant videos to the one that you're watching right now. How machine learning works in Meta Ads 2025. That's a video that I referenced earlier. And then number 2 is how to test in performance marketing. These structures facilitate testing, but most people have no idea how to actually test properly, what the different types of tests are, and what kind of tests they should be prioritizing. That 22-minute video dives into it, and so I strongly recommend going to the channel, finding that video. It will really ensure that you go and apply these account structures properly.